Alright, in this video we're taking a look at engraving fonts, kerning tables, cutter suggestions, all that good stuff with fonts. So let's get started. Alright, so we have a name here that is a first and last name, and obviously the spacing is not great enough here between the two. So we want to adjust the kerning table to increase the spacing between, and then there's some other characters that we could look at and say we want to make some changes here too. So what we can do is go to Font Editor, and then we have to turn on the Edit Kerning Table switch. So first thing, let's make a change here with our space width. So we have our inner character, so this is just between each character, and then we have our overall space width. So as we increase this, let's say we go to 500, then we can select Apply, and there's a little more space. So, well, we need a lot more space, so let's try 700. Apply. That looks pretty good. Now we could even look at other characters here, like maybe between the M and the U, or the R and the O. Let's do the R and the O. So the way we would make a change here is we can just click in and hit enter for a new line. Then we type in the two characters, and obviously uppercase, lowercase does matter here, so we need an uppercase, oops, my caps lock is on. We need an uppercase R, an uppercase O, and then we do an equal sign, and then we have to do the space. So our spacing, our default character gap was 250, so let's try 200, and then we do apply. So we see how that pulled the R and the O closer together. Maybe we want to go a little more, so then we can just swipe through it, and we can try 150. Maybe we like that. And then let's say we want to do, we're going to make a new line, and we're going to do the O W spacing. So that one we can try the same thing, 150. Let's see what that does. Okay. So in that case, we say, well, for this one, that's really all we'd want to do here. So right now, the font is changed, and it will stay this way as long as we have apply and then OK. This font will now work this way. If you run the font installer off of the website to add a new font, it's going to write over your kerning table that you adjusted. So any kerning tables that you're modifying, that you're spending time on, you want to save those somewhere separately. So what you can do is export your kerning table, and then you can put it wherever you want. So I have a place that I store mine, and I have kerning tables, and then I can save the Gothic single line here, save that, save it over, yes. And now that one is saved, so that even if I erase my other ones, now if let's say we messed something up and we want to go back to the original, we can go to import kerning table, and they're stored and loaded when we do an install in the C drive, program data, and then we want to go down to one small step, Carpathia, fonts, and here are our kerning tables. So if I go in here and I load the Gothic single line, and then I hit apply, we're back to the old way of doing it. So let's say I just installed and I go, oh no, it messed up my kerning table. Then we can go back to import, and we would go to where we saved our Gothic single line that we just worked on, open that and apply, and all of our fixes are back. So that also allows us, with those file folders where we save that separately, we can share these with other users. We can, if you get one where you really like it and you think it's better, you can send it to us, and we can just have it as the download from that point forward, that it'll always work that way for everybody. All right, so that's how the kerning table works. Now we have the cutter percentage, and what we've done is for a single line font we have 12%, and then for multi-line fonts it's a 6% cutter percentage. That's just the way that we've defaulted it. But if you want to use more bold font, then you would make this a larger percentage, save it as that, or if you want a narrower line, you can do a less percentage for that. So that's also something that you can modify, and what that means and where that shows up. Let's say, okay, is that when you're in the font, typing it out, you'll see over here that you have a cutter suggestion. And then you can pick the closest corresponding cutter. This changes as you change the letter height. So if we change this to 12 point, now it's saying a 14, so we can make that a 15 thousandths cutter. And that fits for that size. And as we go back in here, if we were to make this a 36 point, it's telling us a 43, and we might round down to a 40 thousandths cutter for that one. So working with sizing, we have point sizes in the text properties dialog. If you need it to be 1/4 inch tall text, then what you can do is after you have it set here, then you go to the object properties, and with it locked, you can make the letter height whatever letter height you need. Then you can come back in and you can just make a note. 1/4 inch tall text. The way the point sizes work is that you can almost think of these as in terms of inches. So if you're going to be 0.25, then you're 24 points pretty close. If you need to be 1/2 inch tall, then it's going to be a 50. 1 inch tall is 100. It's not a perfect correlation, but it's very close to get you started. And then notice here we've changed, because we changed our size, that our cutter suggestion is now to this roughly 30 thousandths. So we could change this to 30. Now if we change this to a multi-line font, say Clarendon 4-line, notice our cutter suggestion cuts almost in half, so we're at 12. So we could say a 10 thousandths, round it to 10 thousandths. So okay. And that's going to be what it would look like with a 10 thousandths cutter. And we could always take a look at it with a 15 thousandths cutter. And you can see here in the font editor that this has a cutter percentage of 5. So we could set this differently, and it'll suggest different cutter sizes, fatter cutter sizes if we go at a higher percentage, lower cutter sizes as we go to a smaller percentage. And of course we can switch these back and forth from true type fonts. Let's say we have a true type font that for some engraving we need to do. We want a something that we just don't have as an engraving font. So we can take something like this, and if we need to engrave this diamond drag rotary engrave, then what we can do is we can go in here to text, then we can take this fill type, and instead of being solid we can do a serpentine fill. And we look at our fill properties, and let's say, because this is pretty small text, say we're going to use a 10 thousandths cutter. That's what it's doing with a 10 thousandths cutter. We can see this by going to wireframe mode, which is Control W, and that's the actual paths that it's going to engrave to give us that look. It takes longer to run something like that than it does an engraving font. That's why when we use engraving fonts. But when you do have a customer that wants something different, some specific font, it can still be done using a true type font with a hatch fill, a serpentine fill. Now on a fill, if we use too big a cutter, say we go here to a 30 thousandths cutter, it's not going to look good, and we can see that it's just too big a cutter for this particular font. Control W to turn it back to the normal frame. And then we could try things like, okay, let's go in here and see what it looks like with a 15 thousandths cutter. Not as good as a 10 thousandths. It will be faster though. With true type fonts, we don't have the control of being able to adjust the kerning tables. Those are built the way they're built. And when we download those are just built in, and we don't have that kind of control over those. Okay, now you can go into text and change text. Or you can go to text and change text. This is more often used with job command, where it's part of an automated process that you would just open a job, certain things would be happening behind the scenes, then you would just see this pop up and you would change maybe a date, something like that. And you can even have it labeled what it is in the job commands, so that it prompts you as you go through with this automated job process. But it is there that allows you to go in and change from that dialog box. Alright, so that's how font editing works, using cutter sizes, switching between TrueType and engraving fonts. If you have any questions, let us know.